There's so many flexible options out there now with like freelancers and consultants and lots of support to get it done on even a scrappy budget, and make the most of your time so you can keep growing the business. Another one is never say no to an introduction. I've gotten the craziest things from people who are like, oh, you should meet so-and-so. And I'm thinking, I don't know, sometimes you get that gut where you're like, what would I possibly do with them? Just like take the introduction. Yeah. You just never know, or it'll circle back like a year later and they're like, oh, I just met someone who's, a buyer at XYZ. They should meet you. So really growing your network is just so important, particularly as I was jumping from like life in the, corporate tech world to now I'm in food. Like I didn't know anybody in food. So I really had to just live off these intro worlds of like, you got to get yourself in the network.
This is Evolve CPG, a community of purpose-driven brand leaders who not only believe in better, but actively pursue it. That's better products, better brands, and better leadership for a better world. I'm your host, Gage Mitchell, founder and creative director of Modern Species, a sustainable brand design agency helping better brands grow and scale their impact. On today's episode, we're speaking with Kelsey Moreira, founder and fearless leader of Doughp, about addiction, entrepreneurship, and making it okay to eat cookie dough by the spoonful.
All right, happy to be here. I'm Kelsey. I'm the founder and fearless leader over at Doughp Cookie Dough. We make edible and bakeable and ridiculously tasty cookie dough, ship it across the country, and try to do some awesome stuff along the way. Started the company after getting sober, so we have a big focus on addiction recovery and mental health and trying to make the world a little sweeter, one spoonful at a time.
Nice. I love it. And I haven't had a chance to try the cookie dough yet, but I did send it to our admin for her birthday.
Oh, that's
she just
awesome.
Went gaga for it.
That's so selfless of you. I'm glad you shared it, passed it along. We'll have to get you some, shoot me your address after. We'll make it happen.
Yeah. And I actually originally found out about your company as well through your Regrained partnership. Regrained's a client/friend of ours as well. So I'm excited
cool
to see all those collaborations. I love it when good people get together to do great things.
Yeah, I mean, brand collaborations in general are just so fun. It's such a nice way to like work with another up-and-coming brand who's also doing really cool stuff. I really haven't ever met another food company that I couldn't come up with some like partnership we could do in our product. Like with cookie dough, we can pretty much make any flavor. I've made a nacho cheese cookie dough. We've used like someone's cold brew in a cookie dough to make a coffee one. And with Dan from Regrained, it was great to get this sort of like supercharged super grain that they have and use that in part instead of flour. And it boosted up our protein and fiber with the dough. And it was just it's actually my favorite cookie dough flavor. It's a brownie flavor that's like so moist and amazing. And it bakes like the best cookies. So big fan of Regrained, and just partnerships are such a blast.
Cookie dough, brownie dough, all of that mixed together. I mean,
so good.
How can you lose?
Yeah, you just can't go wrong. It's easy stuff.
Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit more about the inspiration behind Doughp and everything. But first, I was, when looking up your background, I was curious or interested to see that you started off in business and then went to tech before and started dipping into some social impact stuff before starting a CPG company. So can you tell us a little bit about kind of what drove you to study business and how you ended up in tech?
Sure. Yeah. Pre-Doughp life. If I think way back, it's crazy. It's been 4.5 years since I started the company. But prior to that, as you mentioned, doing something totally different. I started at Intel when I was just 16 years old. Through my childhood years, even pre-16, I had always had this like weird fascination with marketing. Like I was like 8 years old dissecting commercials, being like, I wonder like what audience they're going after. Like, why are they playing this commercial like at this time on this channel? And not knowing like what I was really doing, but curious that it was like spiking my interest at this like little kid's age. My parents were like, just watch the show. Like, please stop, please stop talking about the commercials. Probably like recorded on VHS or TiVo or something back then. But just always like weirdly interested in marketing. And I got this chance to work at Intel. It was a high school internship. Should have just been over that summer, and in a marketing department, product marketing. So not really the fluffy, like let's make commercials side like I maybe thought I was interested in, but getting into like how do we show like all these user benefits and get across case studies and return on investment studies for business products from Intel in a product marketing capacity. So loved that first summer, like threw myself into it and got asked if I would stay on part-time through the school years. And so it turned into a 10-year career which in the personal life was like very challenging to balance because I wanted to like be this, kid. I was still a child, like, I'm still in high school, wanted to fit in and be with the cool kids, but I'm like leaving school at 10:30, 11 in the morning to go work with people that were 20, 30 years my senior, and just had this like, I felt like I was like multi-personality, through all of that. And really ended up leaning on alcohol to try and sort of fit in and like find my way there and relieve some of the stress, this like intensity I'd always had to be super all on, to be perfect all the time, make everyone else proud. Like it was exhausting. And and I leaned on alcohol to deal with that. But this idea about impact, I kind of got in my last role at Intel, got a chance to take a step from product marketing into the more philanthropic arm of Intel just after getting sober in 2015, which was like the best decision ever and led into that opportunity to move to San Francisco, new job at Intel, and figuring out, who Kelsey was, but at work, seeing this awesome side of a company that was like, hey, we can make a ton of money, but also like they're dedicating, an entire team to fighting online harassment. In that case, I was working on a program to fight online harassment with machine learning, and like really, really cool to see that dedication of a company to doing good. So I've taken a lot of that with me.
Yeah, that's exciting because often I think when you work in tech, you're just helping rich people get richer and make tools that maybe nobody needs, but they're going to get addicted to. And you get well compensated, but maybe you don't feel good about what you're doing at the end of the day. However, when
it's too real. Some people listening to that are like, oh, yes, that's me. You too can make a change.
Yeah. But being able to use those platforms that reach to do something good is amazing. So I'm glad you were there to kind of help spearhead something like that. But one thing that struck me that you just said is you were using alcohol to kind of fit in or to help with some of your mental health of all the stress, anxiety, or whatever of balancing so much. But when you say using the alcohol to fit in, did you mean more with the professional crowd that you were working in at Intel, or the high school crowd that you were, trying to fit into, even though you were obviously more mature and working on your career at the same time?
Initially meant the latter, but it's a great, it's a great point that it also sort of proliferated in the professional environment when you think about conferences and, the conventions you go to and what that environment is like. And it's in fact where I got sober finally was a business trip. Those were always the worst for me. I was always like, there's like no holds bar. Everyone else is like ready to go crazy. They're away from their families. And then for me, I was away from everybody who knew I had a problem with alcohol. You're like really tight knit circle. The family members, my boyfriend at the time, they knew there was a problem. And so a business trip was like, phew, I could just be with other people who want to have fun. Like, let's just do it and let loose. And that last hurrah, September 14th, 2015, was the first day of a 7-day business trip in Barcelona. Wow. And, I came to at like 3:30 in the morning, had started drinking at like 10:30. I arrived a day early thinking like, oh, I'll get settled. And, just wound up drinking like crazy. And I was just so clear that next morning that I never wanted to feel like this again. I was so, so tired of letting alcohol hold me back. And I found an English speaking AA meeting that morning in Barcelona, and it'll be 6 years this September.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard in kind of behavior design that you often don't do something you think you should do. Maybe you'll get little starts along the way, but you won't really commit to it until you've decided it's a must, something you must do. So it sounds like that waking up that morning was finally the tipping point that turned it into a must for you. Had you thought about getting sober before that, though? Was it a should in the back of your mind?
100%. And so many have a similar journey, It's like, I look at it like you're like this really hard, big iceberg, and you just need like, slowly people are coming up with picks being like, this is not working, like this. And then another night happens, like, this is not working. And then another big thing happens. And just all these like disappointments and letdowns and internal disappointment and shame and the outcomes of what would happen when I was drinking, like just continually were like, oh, I just wish it could be different. And I went through all the little molds of like, how can I still fit alcohol in my life? Like maybe I'll just drink wine. I'll only have beer on Tuesdays. I was like, whatever could I do to like fit this in and make it work? And I tried to get sober for a reset at 21. And if you're 21 trying to get sober, there's probably something wrong. But I thought if I just go 4 months without drinking, I'll be good. I'll be able to like balance it again. And within 3 weeks of starting to drink, I was blacking out again and, still drinking to excess when I would go out. Just alcohol was not working with my body. And like you said, that one final time was like, it's a must. I said to myself, like, if I want to have a positive relationship with anyone else and myself included, I need to stop drinking, like full on.
Yeah, it's amazing that you got to that point relatively early in life. Like you mentioned, like quitting at 21 means that something was going wrong there, because I feel like a lot of alcoholics continue on into their 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever, and it eventually maybe kills them, sadly. But you were able to catch it in time and put your foot down and make a hard decision, which is amazing.
And like actively thinking about that too. I remember thinking, do I want to wait until I have kids and I get pulled over driving them drunk one day or something, you know, like having a little bit of alcohol in my system and driving home, or have to pick them up after I went to a happy hour with friends, and just knowing this capacity I had for no matter what else was coming or whatever else was going to happen. Like I had a really hard time turning it off once I started to drink, or in a, you know, hangout party environment. I just always wanted to keep going and have more once it started. And it just wasn't worth the risk of like, what's that going to be like when you've got kids and a husband, a family to provide for and support? Like, what a liability, you know? So I stopped digging to find my rock bottom and said, let's go here. What do we call it?
We don't need to get further down. I think this is rock bottom enough. That makes sense. And then I know that getting sober, or your kind of struggle with alcohol, was part of the inspiration behind launching Doughp. But tell us a little bit more about how that journey went from that moment you woke up and decided, this is enough, I'm going to make some changes, to leaving tech and launching Doughp.
Yeah. It was a relatively fast period of time, because I did start Doughp in spring of 2017. So it's kind of wild how much happened in that time period. But it really kicks off from that exact day of like self-exploration. Like, who is Kelsey? What hobbies does she have? Like, what does she like to do? You know, I really felt like I was so bland outside of like, I had this cool career and I had all these things like looked okay and I'd got great grades, but like, who was I had no like personality outside of just my accomplishments in professional life. And I really got to dive back in and figure out what I love to do. And from my very young years, I always had such a sweet tooth, and my nickname is Monster Baby with my family for being such a messy eater. And I'm even like a messier baker. So like, you know, Kelsey was in the kitchen and like shit is about to taste great if it's like a huge mess and there's powdered sugar on the ceiling. Like, it's good. So I really got back into the kitchen when I got sober. I was like nights and weekends from Intel, you know, you're kind of like, you're trying to find a new friend group even. You had a lot of drinking buddies. Now it's a whole new world. It was like I had a lot of free time on my hands when I wasn't at the office. And so I started baking and bringing some of those baked goods into the office. And slowly but surely you have enough people who are like, hey, this is awesome. Like, could you make a cake for my kid's birthday next weekend? Or these cupcakes were so great. Could I get them for a party? And so I got a little inkling of like, entrepreneurship could be a thing. Like maybe I could have my own thing and sell desserts. And I gave my hand at that and started Monster Baby Bakery 2 months after getting sober. And and you know, I bet people thought that name was so weird, by the way, without the explanation of what Monster Baby was, catchy, my nickname. Weird, yeah. There you go. Yeah, it was catchy. So maybe it stuck. But MBB was happening, and I was doing lots of like just local delivery. I had an online site for it, and I loved like building a website and building business cards, and like just all that really got me super excited about the idea of having something that was my own. Almost reminded me like when I was 12 years old, I made these little like paper pamphlets and business cards that said why I'd be the best babysitter in the neighborhood. Nice. And I had gone around like handing them out door to door, like a babysitting saleswoman, you know, trying to shoot my shot at the neighborhood. And so I got that kind of energy again, being like, I can like make my thing, you know, what do I want it to look like and talk like and seem like? And the social media side of it was super fun for me. But when I was moved to San Francisco for that job I mentioned earlier at Intel, this new role in the company, I was down in SF going, I can't be a baker here, you know, like there's world-renowned pastry chefs, and was just like, let's put it on the side for now. Focused on Doughp and got that great experience in the more focused on Intel rather, and got the great experience with like their philanthropic arm. And then I realized very quickly that like, not only was I not stopping my baking, but this like entrepreneurial itch to do something that was my own, this does not go away. There's so much excitement when you're like building something that's yours. And I always felt like a little bit too fast for the pace of corporate America, you know, and this chance that like this project you've been working on for a year just gets pulled because the budget's getting moved. And, you know, for someone who pours themselves into anything they do, corporate America can be like a total, you know what, for your real like heart and soul pains. But yeah, I got this idea for Doughp in SF, still baking on the side for myself. And I started trying my hand at veganism, but I loved butter way too much. Okay. So I was a part-time vegan. Yeah. I highly recommend it. I just didn't have eggs on hand very often. And so I would make my cookie dough recipes, cookie recipes, you know, with no eggs, using this egg substitute, but still using butter. And then I have this like light bulb that goes off thinking like, man, I've always snuck a bite or whatever of cookie dough as I've been baking. But now like, I'm just going to save a bowl in the fridge and then, you know, I'll bake a few cookies and like, this is the best of both worlds. And like, everybody loves cookie dough. And there'd been kind of an uptick in, I would say like Pinterest activity of like different cookie dough recipes, like people trying to make like, cookie dough cupcakes or cookie dough cheesecake. And, you know, cookie dough ice cream's been so popular for so long. And I'm just thinking like, why can't we just get cookie dough then? Because I have it here. I could sell this. Like this could be my thing. And that was the real start of it, to say like, I got to do it. I'm going to go pursue this and try to make a business.
That's awesome. Yeah. The sneaking bites of cookie dough is a somewhat common thing. And that's why I got my admin the cookie dough, your Doughp cookie dough, for her birthday, is because she was exactly the same way, like growing up, always sneaking bites of cookie dough and running off with it as much as possible. So we would always do exactly that same thing. Like if we were ever making cookies or whatever, there would be a bowl that just stays dough and then some that gets turned into cookies. So
like someone takes the mixing bowl and starts walking towards the sink. You're like, no, like I'll scrape the bowl. Please let me eat it. Like let me lick the paddle and stuff. So
or even going into the store and buying like a roll of, I don't know, Pillsbury or something cookie dough and just like
peel it back,
the whole thing, you know?
Gnawing on it.
So it's brilliant that you decided to focus on that. And I know that you advertise both, like you can eat it straight or bake it. So which do you feel like is better?
Ooh, you know, I'm going to drop it right in the middle. I feel like half baking it is the best option that has ever existed. Since you don't have to fully bake it, there's no raw eggs. I literally scoop out a little bit into a microwave safe bowl, pop it in the microwave for like 10 to 15 seconds, add a little ice cream, and you have this like half baked sundae.
Nice.
That's really good.
That's cool.
Everyone's drooling now.
Yeah. Is the no eggs kind of a trade secret, or is that something shareable that you're putting in there instead of eggs?
Yeah, we do share it. It's an ingredient as a food product. We got to share it. Some people do have allergies to certain things, but we don't use, there's some companies using like pasteurized eggs, but there are no eggs in ours at all. We use a flaxseed substitute. So a way to make flaxseed mimic the texture of a whisked egg. And it's pretty awesome. Yeah, it makes a great sub. Can't taste it, you know, can't see it. It's great. Good stuff.
That's cool. Yeah, I grew up allergic to eggs, and so I avoid them still to this day just because I've got all these bad memories. So I've almost always, anytime I bake, I'm always using like an egg replacer, even though I could put the eggs in there, you know, because I'm not allergic anymore. But it just feels like
it's haunted you.
It's haunted me. So I'm like, you know, I'm just going to lean on substitutes whenever I can. So it's always fun to hear what other substitutes there are. So that's exciting. So you launched Doughp, and then I don't know where in the launch phase or how long you'd had the company, but you ended up on Sharktank, which I've got a few other friends that have launched their business on Sharktank. So I'd love to hear about your experience. Like, what made you decide to pitch to be on there, and then what was the experience like, and what outcomes came from it?
Yeah, so and getting onto it, we filmed in September of 2018. So I was like a year and a half into the business or so. We had our store on Pier 39, and I was going on to raise for funds to open up the store in Las Vegas. Both of which since we have closed and are fully online, which is a whole nother story to get into about how the e-commerce side of things grew. But our storefronts at the time, having Pier and looking for funds for the Vegas store. And I don't know anybody in show business, so didn't get like a magic carpet to get onto Shark Tank. I full on like sat on a curb in San Francisco for an open casting call, had my Doughp samples, and just like went to pitch and say why I'd be like the best entrepreneur for the show. I think I had a 90-second pitch for the audition, and yeah, it went great. Like after 90 seconds had passed, they're like still eating the dough and like calling over other people to like come and eat it. So I was like, okay, this feels good. But it was a full 6 months from the audition to actually filming. Wow. So lots of like video submissions and rounds in that regard that I didn't even realize was going to be part of it when I started the ordeal. But I'm super glad that I went to try out, and I think it turned out I was the only person from the whole casting call that actually made it on that season, nice. Which is always kind of wild when you just think back to being in that room and it's like you were like the one that actually made it. It's like some crazy percent chance, like 40,000 people apply each season, and then there's like 140 or so that'll make it on a season. So pretty wild that we got picked, and against other cookie dough companies too. There were other cookie dough companies that had tried out that season, but Doughp's doing something different. So super fun to get to go. The film date was like I think it was the day before or the day after my 3-year sobriety anniversary. And so it was a nice little like nod from the universe being like, keep going, like you're on something good. And I was so excited that lined up. Like the timing was really crazy to me. And was in there for an hour and 12 minutes, hour and 15 minutes, which is nuts because you see 8 minutes live, and a great experience. I had done flashcards for all my business numbers. I had been practicing my pitch through and through. I was saying it in my sleep, like actively dreaming about it. So I was really prepared for the filming and super proud of like how the presentation went. But conversation ended up going around that like cookie dough is not healthy for you. And like with the obesity epidemic, and I was like, but it's dessert, like it's cookie dough. Of course. I just didn't think the conversation about a dessert company was going to be frankly like that it's dessert and that it's not a health food. Like we are unashamed to just be a delicious, indulgent, awesome, cookie dough. And like, that's what it is. So it was pretty funny. The sharks ended up being out, and I got another investor 2 months later, and then it aired rather like 4 or 5 months after filming. So I'd already got an investment. We had already opened up that store in Vegas, and then it aired in May of 2019. And it re-airs every month and a half or so. So it's a nice extra pickup of new customers and just a good badge of honor for a brand to say like, we were on there. Yeah. And who knows, one day Cuban's going to call me and be like, shit, I made a mistake. I changed my mind. I love cookie dough. Let's do this. So we just joined his ranks. We made it in the Inc. 5000 list, and we're in the top 500. I think when he was on it originally, it was the Inc. 500. We were number 274. So nice. I'm nudging my way to get that news in front of him so he sees we're doing big things since we last spoke.
That's awesome. Yeah, from other people that have been on the show, I know that even if they get investment, sometimes it's like a small initial investment or whatever, and the sharks are pretty busy people, and they've got lots of investments, so it's hard to get some of their attention. So it really is like more about consumer awareness, like just getting your name out there. Tons of people are watching that show and driving traffic to your store or your website or whatever. That's cool. So So you had that one location, or you said there was 2 locations, like physical locations? Yeah,
I had a location in San Francisco on Pier 39, famous like tourist pier out there, and then on the Las Vegas Strip, in Las Vegas, Nevada.
And what made you decide? Obviously, I think you started it in San Francisco. So what made you decide to open up the Vegas location?
Actually, the work around Doughp for Hope was a big push for us to go there, which sounds funny. But I thought if I'm going to try and talk about mental health and addiction recovery, where better to share the story than Sin City itself, and get that message like out to people who were on the Strip. And it was a beautiful store. We did like a little do-it-yourself bar where you could create your perfect flavor, our blonde cookie dough, plus all these different toppings and sauces, and we'd mix it on site for you, kind of like Cold Stone of cookie dough, if you will. So it was a blast, beautiful shop, and a great like way to get across our mission. We had a little booth where people could vote where the proceeds from the Doughp for Hope flavor would be donated to, and like a nice way to kind of integrate it. But we have an even more, I think like stronger presence getting across the mission and purpose in our e-commerce business, which is taken over and many times eclipsed what we were able to do in the storefronts.
Nice. Yeah, what I love about what you're building is not only do you have an interesting founding story, like why you started the company and the background with your love of cookie dough and whatnot, but you also take it a step further and you do something about why you started the company, and you have things like Doughp for Hope going, and your social media feed is scattered with different mental health awareness tips or call outs. So
Yeah.
how do you feel like that's part of your success so far, is just being mission forward like that, and really throwing it out there like Dave's Killer Bread or something like that say, hey, crap happens in life, but you can pick yourself up and do something about it and help make other people's lives better too?
100%. I mean, it's what keeps me going. So even on like a personal, if I selfish for a moment, like, wow, it feels really good to be doing something for good. So the hard days, you think literally about like the individual lives you're impacting, and being so loud about these topics. Like, we have literally gotten emails from people saying, I want to get sober. Who should I reach out to, and is She Recovers the right group to contact, the foundation that we are supporting right now. So it's like really cool to just say, like, we have a chance to literally, even if it's one person, you know how this goes, right? Even if it's one person's life that we touched and impacted, like, absolutely worth it. So it's great for that. And then I think it's been amazing for the growth of the brand to have something more to talk about, that like, if you feel passionate about these issues or you're affected by them, and 1 in 5 Americans are suffering from mental illness, you've got even more that are not admitting to it, diagnosed, or reached out for help. So that is, we don't really get to this like 6 degrees of separation anymore. It's like, you or someone has probably had personal struggles with mental health or addiction recovery, and finding a company that not only has come through this journey, which is one day at a time, a journey for me every day, but the company trying to support that, it's like, that's something you want to get behind. That's something you want to tell your friends and family about. So I do think it's an opportunity to like really build a community that cares about the brand and wants to share it loud and proud, like they're part of the Doughp family, and like we're all here supporting it, trying to make it grow and trying to make it have a bigger impact.
Yeah. And that, I feel like that 1 in 6 people will struggle with some sort of mental health is probably even undershooting, because I feel like that's 1 in 6 people know they're struggling with some sort of mental health, and the other 5 will discover it eventually, because we're all probably dealing with something somewhere in our past or in our present that's hard to overcome. And the fact that we, for the longest time put mental health as this weird stigma, whereas physical health or exercising or whatever was commonplace and okay to talk about, not just talk about, but post all your pictures of all the runs you just did on your social media. But it's not okay to talk about mental health and maybe what you're doing to strengthen it, or sometimes when you break down. So I love that you're helping Make It Okay, I think, is another org that I hear about a lot through some different podcasts, where it's trying to make it okay to talk about things like depression. I know you support the She Recovers Foundation. Tell us a little bit more about that partnership, why you chose them, and what they do.
Yeah, so they're kind of that pillar of our Doughp for Hope initiative that's really about nonprofits that are working in the space. We do have the other pillar for our employees, like the robust mental health policy. How can we let our employees like bring their full selves to work? And then one that you mentioned earlier with like our social feed and email, always really trying to focus on how we can keep this conversation elevated and part of everything that we do to support making it more okay to talk about what's really going on in our lives, and recognizing that you're not alone in what you're going through. So this nonprofit component is 1% of all of our sales donated to a nonprofit that works in the space. And we're supporting She Recovers Foundation for 2021. They support women that are in or seeking recovery from mental health challenges, life challenges, and substance use disorder. So very close to my heart. It's a great like supportive network of amazing women, and started by a mother and daughter who are in recovery. And they're just awesome humans, and I love helping to support what they're doing. They've been really nimble through the pandemic, and have, I think it's like twice daily recovery coach led meetings, and tons of different subsets. Even through Pride Month, we were able to help with additional donations, 10% of sales from a flavor we had made with an influencer from the LGBTQIA community. And they started a specific She Recovers group just for them. So yeah, they're really trying to give tailored community support for women that are going through much of the same things.
Beautiful. Glad you were able to find that partnership and help each other push forward in your missions. And you also mentioned that the e-commerce store is an even better place to tell your story than the retail locations, and that you've shut those down, possibly because of COVID, but you've possibly because online e-commerce was taking off. So tell us a little bit about that transition, kind of what it was like to shut the stores down and grow the e-commerce.
Yeah, the story starts pre-pandemic, shockingly, but in late 2019, we had our store in Pier 39. We had chosen to close in August of that year. rising cost of business in SF, not pandemic related because it hadn't come yet, but just saying, we have this flagship store in Vegas and we were really struggling with the costs of labor and things in San Francisco. So we closed that and said, what's going to be the other channel so that we're not so reliant on just the brick and mortar storefront? What else should we focus on? And this is the time when my husband joined the company. He's co-CEO with me today. Nice. And he's very like ops and finance brain. I'm very marketing and sales, like dream vision stuff. And he's like, hello, reality, and like brings me down. So we're a great yin and yang. And these conversations in that fall of 2019, we're talking about what this other channel should be. And looking at all the numbers, like he said, e-commerce is going to be what we should double down on. So we got all of our gears in motion, like getting ads started, building a new site on Shopify, like really getting ourselves ramped up to do that. And we went from selling 30 boxes a month in November to 3,000 boxes a week in April of 2020. Absolute insane glow up. We were not sleeping for like 3 months straight during those last months when it was just like at such a rapid rise. And ended up moving to a fulfillment center in co-packer through the summer of 2020 when the storefront, the singular one there in Vegas, it was forced to close for the quarantine, like full shutdown. And then when it reopened, it was down 82% year over year. Yeah. So we're looking at this going like, my gosh, we're going to hit 2.5 million we wound up doing in 2020 online versus $50,000 online in 2019, while the storefront is like, sucking all of our operational capacity, sort of a distraction almost at that point. Yeah. And just didn't make sense to keep it going and focus on what growth was going to be possible for the business online. And now the new channel of, still wanting to diversify and not be reliant on one channel, started focusing on retail. And we have our first launch in grocery next month.
Ooh, exciting. Is that a grocery channel you can share yet, or is that TBD? You'll announce it soon.
No, I can share. You can get the sneak preview. So at Harmon's, this is in Utah. There's 19 stores through Utah, and a great account for people in the CPG world because they are an anchor store for UNFI, a big distributor you're going to need to be in for some of the other accounts. And then we have a much crazier, wild name to share for Q4, but that one's still... I got to keep it hush hush for now. So announcements to come about where else you'll be able to find Doughp, but I'm really excited.
That's exciting. Doughp online or in a convenience store, not convenience store, but a store convenient
there
to
too. You never know.
Yeah, that would
We're working on that too.
Yeah, that could be a good channel. I know some of our better nutrition or better for the world brands, like convenience stores have such garbage food most of the time. You can maybe at most get a Cliff Bar or something like that. So I do think better brands should be pitching that market too. And who doesn't want a tub of cookie dough while you're on a road trip or something?
Yeah. Some of the convenience stores are getting on board with that too. We're talking to 7-Eleven right now, and they have a whole program called Brands with Heart and are trying to look at kind of these more mission-led focused brands. So they've got an eye on it as well.
That's great.
But I'm certainly trying to be proactive.
That's awesome. So I haven't done the math, but how many years is it? Like roughly 5 years-ish that you've been in CPG now?
Yeah, it's 4.5 years. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what kind of lessons learned can you share with others kind of that look to be in your shoes in the future about kind of dipping into the CPG world?
Yeah, I do have some pro tips happy to share from this journey because it's like I kind of say every 6 months feels like an MBA. It's like you're always learning something new. It's like full deep dive into some new area. Like you're learning fundraising, you're learning the new channels you're launching in. It's always something to soak up. But a couple of takeaways are hire for what you suck at. That's been one of the big learnings. I could do everything, but I don't have time to do everything. So I quickly had to assess, like, where are the areas that are my zone of genius? Like, where do I just feel absolutely lit up and time is flying while I'm doing it, and do more of that. And for any of the tasks that someone else could take over, try to hire. And there's so many flexible options out there now with like freelancers and consultants and lots of support to get it done on even a scrappy budget, and make the most of your time so you can keep growing the business. Another one is never say no to an introduction. I've gotten the craziest things from people who are like, oh, you should meet so-and-so. And I'm thinking, I don't know, sometimes you get that gut where you're like, what would I possibly do with them? Just like take the introduction. You just never know, or it'll circle back like a year later and they're like, oh, I just met someone who's, a buyer at XYZ. They should meet you. So really growing your network is just so important, particularly as I was jumping from like life in the, corporate tech world to now I'm in food. Like I didn't know anybody in food. So I really had to just live off these intro worlds of like, you got to get yourself in the network. Another big one is do this for more than yourself. Try and be a good human with what you're building. And I think it's poignant to the kind of stuff you're trying to highlight here in this podcast with, brands that just mean more. It's cool to make money, and that's definitely part of the game. Like you want to have a profitable business and all of this, but what if you could have a positive impact along the way? It's not there's one final outcome and it was successful or not. It's like this entire journey is having an impact on the world, and like that's success. Whatever this winds up looking like at least I feel good about what I did every day of the process through. So those are some quick ones, but I've learned a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome. Those are good lessons. So I was going to ask about the what the future looks like for Doughp, but you've already kind of planted some seeds there, moving more into retail and whatnot. So I'm going to shift and say, since Doughp focuses a lot on mental health awareness, what do you do as a busy entrepreneur scaling this rapidly growing company that I guess is always in recovery, I guess is what they say for getting sober, right? What do you do for your own mental health? How do you make sure that you're staying focused and energized and balanced and all those things that we need to be able to keep moving forward day to day?
It's like a hugely important conversation because entrepreneurs are like no other, we're a different breed. You could literally work around the clock if you wanted to, and your work will never be done. There's always something else to do because you're at the helm of how big it's going to grow and how fast it's going to be. So I think one of the big takeaways that's changed my mental health, and it's always like a process. It's never perfect. But one, I'm a little softer on myself with how many things I'm doing that are good for my mental health. Cause I know, I sort of call it like my mental health recipe card. I know what ingredients I need to have on there to stay grounded, to stay balanced. And, there's 5 or 6, right? It's like meditation, yoga, working out, seeing my therapist, calling my mom, writing in my journal, those types of things. If I'm not doing all of them, I used to be so hard on myself that like, I just had failed and I would just give up, and then it's next week. Now you're just in the grind. You're not taking care of yourself at all. You sort of feel like you dropped the ball, and so you should just give up. So I try to be softer with like, can I get like 2 of the 5, or could I get, can I get some of these and feel like, what could I do next week to try and get one more? So it's this incremental softness with yourself. Another big thing has been on vacation. So as the company has grown, being able to have like a director of marketing, a director of operations now, like there are people who could help make a strategic decision in the event of some fire or nightmare. And so I was really able this year to take like my first full vacation and actually completely disconnect, and that chance to set the stage for the employees to say, when you take a vacation, you actually take a vacation. Like didn't respond to one Slack, didn't respond to one email, didn't take one phone call. And that spoke like wonders, to show that like you really do get to reset when you leave. And I came back feeling so recharged. I mean, the 4 years preceding, I can't tell you how many vacations I canceled or how many Christmases I've been in the corner dealing with some emergency on my phone. And it was 24/7 Doughp chaos in my life, for the better part of those 4 years. So this year has been a big focus for me on how do I walk the walk and talk the talk that, all of it has to come full circle for me personally as well. And it's a rewarding battle, but it's a battle. And it's always, one day at a time, like my own personal recovery.
Nice. That's beautiful. And I know for me, it's kind of similar in that, I have my 5 ingredients for a healthier and mentally stable life, but exactly like what you were saying, busy weeks get out of control. You're not sleeping enough. You got so many meetings and deadlines and whatever else you got to do. So I often end up only getting 1 or 2 of those in some weeks, and then you start beating yourself up about not doing the others. But I love what you talked about, just having a little bit of self-love and compassion, and knowing that it's not about being perfect. It's about making progress, right? And one quote that I like is 90% is still an A. In this particular case, 20% is still good effort, but even 90% is still an A.
Still trying.
Don't aim for perfection, just aim for progress. I love that.
I love it. I have like an actionable tip here that's helped me a ton with at least getting some time for reading in the evenings and some meditation, even if it's a short bit. There's this like light clock that I have next to my bed that's called the Hatch Restore. It's amazing. It has like a wind down routine that has a 15-minute reading light, transitions into a 10-minute meditation, and then turns on white noise for the evening till my alarm goes off in the morning, which has a nice like sunrise light portion, starts a small meditation, and then I'm up to start my day. So it's like even these little things where you may be like, oh, I didn't have time to read today, or like there wasn't time to do a meditation before bed. Like, what if it was part of the wind down of being in bed, you know? And that's helped me fit it in a lot more than I was able to before. So I'm not getting paid by them. I just really like it. And it's been super helpful.
Yeah. Well, we're not getting paid by them, but we'll try to make sure we include a link in the show notes. So check there.
Yeah. It's really cool.
Similar resource I would share is a book called Tiny Habits by Dr. B.J. Fogg out of Stanford. He studies behavior design, and he wrote a book called Tiny Habits that just helps people start small to create more healthy or more desirable behaviors in their life, or to end less desirable behaviors. And it's all based on, behavioral psychology and lots of experiments and so on and so forth. So it's a good practical how-to book. So if anyone's out there trying to figure out how to get themselves to do something that they've been struggling to do, I would recommend that book. And you also mentioned briefly the being in your zone of genius, which I'm guessing you might have also gotten that from The Big Leap, which is a book kind of about not focusing on all the things you could be doing, but focus on the things that you're meant to be doing where you uniquely shine, and then delegate the rest of it. So we'll share some links to those as well.
Perfect.
And then, of course, I know you also have your own podcast, so give us a quick pitch for that, and we'll share some links in the show notes for that too.
Sure. Super fun like combo of my life, which is talking about cookie dough, mental health, and addiction recovery. I started the podcast Soberpreneur, and we just released season 2 starting. So episodes every other week. And it's raw conversations with people who have overcome obstacles in their life and what they've gone on to create. So we've got some entrepreneurs, some just like movers, shakers, and badasses doing their thing. So it's really fun. Some amazing conversations and people who just blow my mind, but lots of shared experiences and learnings. This goal that like when you listen to it, there's something that resonates that you connect with and leave a little bit more inspired to go make the world a better place.
That's awesome. You're doing so many things. I can understand why it becomes chaos at some points. And I totally agree with you that like every 6 months is an MBA or something when you're running a business, or in your case, probably multiple things between your podcast, your Doughp company, and then also a bunch of other stuff you're probably working on. But I appreciate what you're doing and the fact that you are kind of leading with your mission and taking your own life experiences, learning lessons from them, and then trying to make other people's lives better. That's super inspiring, and I've heard great things about the product. I'm going to get some for myself in the near future and try it for myself.
That seals the deal.
But great product, great brand, great mission. So keep doing what you're doing. I love it. And thanks for taking some time out of your busy schedule to share your story with us.
Thanks for the opportunity. It was awesome. Great to meet you. And have a dope day, everybody.
Cheers. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to learn more about Kelsey or her company, go to doughp.com. That's dough as in cookie dough with a P.